Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-host,
Dominic Castillo.
Alright, so we're back. Alright, so it's been some time since we last recorded, but we're back. How have you been, Dom?
I have been pretty, not stressed out, but like post-stress, you know what I mean? I finally finished my finals, so I'm pretty much scot-free from school for the time being, and now summer break, you know?
I get you.
And, well, pretty much I have now all the way till August to do anything. So, I mean, from this point on, I'm not sure what to do. I'm probably going to look for, like, a second job in the meantime, or, honestly, I'm not sure what to do. Because, I mean, it's just pretty much just staying home from this point on and going to work. I don't really have that many plans for the summer. But we'll see what happens. How about you, Jack? How's everything going on for you?
I've been doing pretty good, you know. I kind of felt similar to what you were saying, you know. Don't really know what to do. But, instead of kind of just like, how would you say, like, sitting there and not doing anything, you know? I've kind of taken the approach of like trying to accomplish something different every day, you know?
Yeah.
So that way it's like at least I'm still continuing to do something, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like one day I'll work on some art, another day I'll you know, maybe how would you say, I'll like read some books, another day I'll play through a little bit of a video game, you know, stuff like that, different every day.
Right.
Just, you know, kind of get in the rhythm of doing stuff rather than, you know, not doing anything and kind of being unproductive with time, you know.
Right.
As far as other than that, though, recently I went to go see the new Doctor Strange movie.
Oh, right.
Real good. I got to see it twice. First time with friends, and then the second time I went with a huge group of my family.
Interesting.
Like, we had almost like half of the row in the movie theater to just, like, that was basically just my entire family.
Right. Well, did you guys have to reserve seats for that, or no?
No, we just bought our seats ahead of time.
Oh,
So let me think. It was, or well, you know, it was a ton of our cousins. Like, so 2, 4. Then there was the 4 because my brother, myself, my mom and dad, and then 4. I want to say it was almost like 12 people basically.
Jeez.
We had like a decent amount of the row, like almost half of it, and we enjoyed our time. It was very fun, very crazy movie, very crazy things happened in it. But I won't. I already kind of spoiled it because so Lisa and I yesterday when we had our recording for discussing the wrestling, we talked about it a bit and kind of spoiled it. Dom, before I do start getting into details, do you plan to go see it anytime soon?
I think maybe. Do you know if it's on any streaming services, or is it just like just theater only?
I think it's purely theater only.
Jeez. Do you think it's 100% worth watching? You know?
I would say so. I think, there are some flaws to it, obviously, with every movie, but it was a pretty good watch, you know. But I don't know. There's a lot of things, like, it's one of those movies where you really have to like really pay attention because there's just so many things that kind of go by and you kind of have to attempt to catch, you know, in a sense.
Right.
Like, there's a lot that, you know, you gotta watch out for if like you're trying to catch like all the different like what would you call it, like Easter eggs in it, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was pretty
I mean, I guess you could spoil it for me. I'm not sure if I am gonna watch it or have the time to watch it later on. But But yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead. No worries. No worries.
Yeah. So, so Lisa in the last episode. If you still plan to watch it, just skip ahead like a couple minutes. But it was a pretty good movie. There was a lot of things I didn't catch on first watch while watching it. You know, like there was a lot of little Easter eggs I didn't catch, and even like I had to catch them during the second time I watched it, and even then there was some things that I missed. But it was real good. You know, Wanda's character in it was really good, especially as the villain. And I won't spoil too much for you, Dom, and for the review. You know, I just really enjoyed it and a lot that was in it. But the one thing that I just keep talking about, because it's like, it's how would you say? It's in a sense out of the norm for Marvel, especially once they got bought out by Disney. Where there's a lot of things that they've shown like in previous movies, but like in this one they really took advantage of their rating. They got a PG-13 rating, and people have kind of been complaining about it, saying that it should have been like rated R. But I don't agree with it, because like a lot of the stuff was implied and it wasn't really shown. Like, so the big spoiler I'll give to you is that in the comics of Marvel, there was a group known as the Illuminati, and it's basically a group composed of like heroes. But what makes it different from like the Avengers, Fantastic Four, all those different groups, is that it's an assembly of heroes from those different groups who can make the difficult decision,
Right.
So you're not going to see a guy like Captain America in the group, because, he's always about doing what's like morally right. And this is the group for like those decisions where, it has to be done even if it's not morally correct,
Right.
And so in the comics, it's characters like Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Professor X from the X-Men, Black Bolt from the Inhumans, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting one, Namor.
Right.
And Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. And I think there's one more. But, that's basically the gist of it. It makes sense for a character like Iron Man and Doctor Strange to be there because, again, they're ones that, especially you've seen in the MCU movies, they're the ones that usually are making the difficult decisions,
Yeah.
But so they make an appearance in the movie in a different form. This time it's Captain Marvel, Captain Britain, Black Bolt is there from the Inhumans. Professor X from the X-Men is there. Mr. Fantastic is there, who is played by John Krasinski.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then and Mordo. I don't know if you saw the first Doctor Strange movie, but Mordo's there because in this universe, because they're traveling the multiverse, obviously. In this universe, Doctor Strange died, and so he takes over his position.
Oh, right.
And so the big like reveal in this different universe, because they have a statue that like Mr. Solis made a good point about it. It was like there was a statue that said that was in memory of Doctor Strange, the guy who defeated Thanos, right? And It kind of makes you think, because like the question kind of proposed at the beginning was, could there have been any other way to defeat Thanos? And like Mr. Solis pointed out, there's this kind of like slight like how would you say, like doubt given to the viewers, because it's like you see that that statue and you're like, well, was there another way? And this Doctor Strange just didn't go it that way. But then you find out they show Strange that actually this Doctor Strange had been dealing with like dark magic in a sense, like it was this book called The Dark Hope, and he had basically started to begin getting corrupted by it, and he went to the rest of the Illuminati members and confessed to them, and then they went as a group to defeat Thanos, and they were able to. But at the end of that fight, because he had been corrupted, again, dealing with the whole thing of the Illuminati making difficult decisions, they made the decision to kill Doctor Strange because he had already been corrupted. And they lied to the rest of society about it, that he died defeating Thanos, when in reality they themselves killed him because he had started to be getting corrupted.
Right.
And so going back to my original point of their PG-13 rating, they have Doctor Strange locked up because they're afraid of him, even though he keeps trying to tell them Wanda's coming and she's like the big threat. She shows up in this universe through possessing this universe's Wanda. And she goes to fight. The Illuminati go to fight her because she breaks into the headquarters. And she basically just runs straight through them because, Wanda's a powerful mutant, obviously. But so the rating comes in where Black Bolt, his ability is that, he basically, like, speaks through, obviously, like, his mouth. And it's basically, like, powerful, like, he speaks something and, like, it, like they show in the movie, it sends out, like, energy waves that basically can, like, kill you, right?
Right.
Well, Mr. Fantastic reveals that power to Wanda, and he was like, oh, he can kill you with, like, a word from his mouth, and she just goes, what mouth? And they pan back to him. His mouth is gone, because Wanda can shift realities and change things of reality. So just with one word, she made it that he doesn't have his power no more because he can't speak, and he's trying to speak. And she opens up like a little window for him and uses that against him because then he feels the little opening. He tries to scream. She closes it back up. It ricochets back into his head. And you just get this image of his head caving inward.
Oh, geez, that's brutal.
And again, it's not shown. You don't see like stuff splatter everywhere. All you see is like him start bleeding from the nose. And his eyes kind of go dark, you assume, of course, from the blood. And it kind of clumps up in his mask, but it's implied. You don't see it, right?
Right.
And then Mr. Fantastic basically gets turned into string cheese, Like, that's the way people have been describing it, because she, like, starts slowly pulling him apart, but it's in a cartoonish way, and you don't really, like, see, like, what would make it an R-rated movie is seeing, like, the contents of it all. It's like very cartoony where it's like you see it basically how would you say, like, it looks like not only ribbons but it looks it just looks like string in a sense,
Yeah.
Like, it's not really like, it doesn't look like a human body was torn apart. It just looks like a plastic, like, ribbon and stuff,
Jeez.
And then the big one too was Captain Britain, Peggy Carter. She throws the shield at Wanda. She throws it back, and it basically cuts her in half. But you don't see it because it only stays above looking at her face. And when she falls down, and when the shield the shield goes straight through her, hits a pillar, and you see it covered in blood. But it's not shown. It's implied, but it's not shown. So, like, that's the main kind of argument for the PG-13 rating rather than it being rated R, is that a lot of the stuff was implied, It wasn't really shown. But that was, like, the crazy part was seeing, because, like, going into it, you heard because Sam Raimi was directing it, there was going to be a lot of, like, horror in it, which there was. There was a lot of different, like, jump scares with Wanda, and she really, like, played up this, like, witch role, the Scarlet Witch role. And, like, there was a ton of brutality, but, like, again, none of it was really shown. So, like, people have been kind of going back and forth, saying, like, oh, you just because it was brutal doesn't mean it deserves the R rating because it wasn't even, like, shown and stuff. And other people are like, well, all the stuff is left up to imagination, and even then it's brutal. And a lot of people were like, oh, the kids, but, like, everyone else was kind of like, well, it's PG-13, you're the ones taking that risk of taking your kids to that movie,
True.
Like, my dad said it himself, he always made sure to do his research ahead of time so he knew whether to take my brother and I to a certain movie or not, especially when he was looking at the ratings. He would look into, like, well, what exactly is going to be, like, shown,
Right.
And I don't know, I feel like because of, like, this day and age, people aren't doing that, like, their due diligence, Especially, like, they see it's Marvel and they're like, oh, I could take the kids to this, and they're not doing their due diligence, Which, I don't know, I feel like people are kind of being nitpicky because, like, in Endgame, I didn't see any parents or, like, people online complaining about them literally decapitating Thanos. You remember at the very start of the movie?
Yeah.
They literally did that, and I didn't see no complaints. So I don't know, but that was the craziest part of the movie, and then obviously, you know, there's the whole story of it, and you know, like a Doctor Strange movie, it has those trippy scenes of like going through realities and stuff. It was really good, really well directed. It was kind of harder to follow compared to the first one, but still really good in it. You know, and
Right.
that was basically my weekend, was watching that movie and talking about it with everyone because it was really good. It was a crazy experience. Our theaters, well, my when the first time I saw it, my theater wasn't like, you know, as rowdy for a lot of the stuff. I don't know why. I mean, they popped for like, you know, the appearances of the Illuminati because, you know, you got to see those different characters make the cameos, but I don't know. It felt like they were quiet, and then the second time we saw it, our theater was too loud. Where, you know, the people who were watching it for the first time, like my dad, didn't get to catch a lot of the stuff that was shown or
Right.
like said because, you know, our theater was being so loud.
I'd be like that.
That was a pretty good experience. You know, that was my week, and then excited for where Marvel goes from here. And obviously, Dom, you and I have a main topic that we want to discuss for this episode, right?
Yeah.
And to kind of segue into that, I want to talk about some other news that happened this week, because I feel like it ties into a lot of what the thing we'll be discussing talks about on their song. So what I'm referring to is the recent news of Young Thug, Gunna, and the other YSL members getting arrested on RICO charges.
Oh,
Now, this was real big news the past couple of days. And first off, Dom, did you see a lot of the news and what was happening with it?
I saw some of the news sparking, on the Twitters, on the Instagrams. I don't remember how many people were hit with charges. Was it like around like 9 or so?
I think it was 28 people, actually.
Oh, 20. Oh, geez, my bad. Okay, no, I think I just saw like the first image. There was like one image and it had like I think like 10 or so names, but I didn't know there was like that many people. I know that there were people arrested, some big names in there. But aside from that, I didn't hear nothing much else except for like the memes online of what was it? I don't remember the memes, but
Like the people trying to get other people arrested, saying they were a part of YSL.
yeah, I think like offering food as well, like just a bunch of food.
People were saying they were gonna offer food to Gunna to make him like snitch on people.
Yeah, or like what was like tight neon pants or something.
Yeah, because of his the way he dresses. Yeah, I saw those too. But so yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's I think it was about 28 members or so were like arrested, and it's about like I forgot if the number was 56 or 65 RICO charges, like in general. And for the people who don't know, oh whoops, I searched up the wrong thing. The RICO charge, as it's described, is a crime for any person through a pattern of racketeering activity to acquire or maintain any interest in or control of any type of property or business. And that it's also mainly related to like gang violence, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think the racketeering relates to, you know, it's like gang related charges and stuff like that. I don't know, I read the first thing off of Google, but like that's kind of like what the RICO charges are detailing, is the whole like gang violence, because apparently like they back in, I think it said as far back as 2012 they started classifying YSL, which stands for a Young Slime Life or something like that, like their group and label, as like they started profiling them and observing them as a gang. And apparently there was like, I don't know, they said they've observed over, I want to say like 50 murders, and this kind of like irked people because they were like, how do you just watch them happen and not stop it beforehand? But like apparently when it comes to RICO charges, it's like you have to be very precise, and it's difficult because, you know, you have to kind of prove they're a gang inciting violence in a sense. But you would think after like 10 murders, you would be able to get them on those charges, rather than wait till like 50, because that's what like they said. Like the prosecutors themselves said, like there was like over like 50 murders or something.
Jeez.
But like the main one that they're getting to is like one that was back in like 2015, and they're trying to say that the rapper Young Thug not only is the leader of this, but he was the one that put the hit on the guy and, you know, paid them to go and kill the guy.
Right.
And so they're getting him now, and you know, that's kind of the charges that them and all these members are facing, and they're even trying to go after other people that may be affiliated, you know, that aren't necessarily in the group but have like affiliations to it, you know.
Right.
Like, you know, a lot of people are looking at like a lot of different rappers that have been associated with them, like Lil Baby and Playboy Cardi. But it's some crazy stuff, you know. It's like these RICO charges are serious. Like each one, I'm pretty sure is like a max or like a minimum of like 20 years or something like that. Let me see.
Just the minimum?
Let me see. Minimum sentence for RICO charge, 20 years.
20. Wow.
And this is 65 counts of them for all the different members. Like, I think only Young Thug and Gunna have, like, 1 or 2 charges, but that's still, like, you know, 40 years if you're looking at 2. But at the same time, I don't think most of them are even going to see bail. So it's like, even though they've made their money through music, if there's no bail, it's not like they can get out unless they're proven innocent, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I think they only have, like, 1 or 2, which, I mean, again, it's still severe, but, like, their other members of the group, like, have a lot more, and they can be looking to serve like a lot of time. And this came in like as a huge shock, because everyone was like, wow, this just came out of nowhere, you know, not only them getting arrested, but it's for these type of charges.
Right.
It's some pretty insane stuff. But I only bring it up because it kind of ties into what our main topic is, and that is Kendrick Lamar dropping a single. We know his album is releasing on, or tomorrow, technically Friday, you know. Friday midnight for the East Coast, 9 o'clock for us tomorrow. He dropped this song, The Heart 5. It's a part of his saga of tracks labeled The Heart, and this is the 5th installment. And, you know, with these tracks, it's always Kendrick kind of, you know, to the name of the song, talking straight from the heart, you know.
Yeah.
And I brought up the YSL stuff and the RICO charges because as you saw, like, or as you listened to this track, you kind of heard Kendrick talking a lot about, because Kendrick's always been pretty vocal about, you know, the way gang violence kind of plagues their communities, you know, and like how it's a never-ending cycle of people being stuck in it because they can't get out of it once they're in it, you know.
Yeah.
And it just kind of felt like related in a way, at least from my perspective. I was like, you know, it just kind of, in a sense, like, connects, where like he's talking about this stuff, and like days later we just see, you know, more people getting caught in you know, gang violence and you know, get locked up and stuff like that, and incriminated for stuff like that, you know.
Right.
And like the prosecutors were saying, it's like if 50 people died, you know, that ties into murder, gang violence, and all this stuff. And I can't remember if I saw the reports correctly, but they might even be trying to get them on some type of like drug dealing or something. You know? So it's a lot of what Kendrick has talked about in his career, you know. But getting into it, Dom, what were your thoughts on the track? Your initial thoughts?
I first saw the video. I know some people like rather listen to the audio first, or like not watch the visuals, but I'll watch the video. And it was a bit odd, like just seeing him, like, you know, with the red background, him with the white shirt and the black bandana on his neck. The background music sounded pretty funky, although it wasn't much of like the best of the best he could make. Or I'm assuming this is just, you know, just because he approved of the beat. It sounded pretty nice, although I wouldn't have it on repeat. But the lyricism and like the messages and like the way he uses the face changing of like every time he's speaking about something, particularly about someone, he has his face change. So I believe it goes from We started off with like O.J. Simpson, then Kanye West. Who was the third guy again?
I forget who I don't know. I saw people bringing up the name, but I've never really heard of him.
Yeah,
I think his name is like Juicy or something like that. Or let me see, what was it?
Jay something. I forgot.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But it's like, I think it's Jesse or Juicy Smollett.
Yeah. I remember that.
I've never heard of him, but that was the face, and then Kobe Bryant, and finally Nipsey Hussle.
Yeah,
and Will Smith, of course. Will Smith was also there too.
Oh, and Will Smith, yeah. I remember for some of the specific lyrics when he started going in, especially for Nipsey Hussle, and Kobe. No, was it Kobe? Or was it? Yeah, it was Will Smith. For the first part, it was pretty deep. I mean, the whole song was pretty much deep. But it especially got even more deep when it got to the Nipsey Hussle, the Nipsey Hussle part. Jeez. At the end, especially when like the one specific verse saying that he could still hug you, not even in the flesh. I believe. I'm not sure if that's word by word, but that part was pretty depressing. But I mean, it had to be said. Then there was also the part of when it was Will Smith talking about hurt people hurting others.
Yeah.
Well, it was like, I think it was Will Smith's face while it was still popping up. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the rest of the song was also it went good. The flow went good. I liked the beat. The message was definitely conveyed out there.
Yeah, I like how when he starts it off, like one of the first things he says is life is about perspective, and like how like each of those perspectives are always going to differ. And that's kind of just the message to the people of like, you got to be able to look at things through other people's perspective,
Yeah.
Like I think I told you when we were talking about like I think it was the Denzel Curry track, and I was telling you, when it comes to me with music analysis, it's like I see there's levels to it, and like one of the main levels that I want more people to reach is going even past the surface level and beyond, beyond just being able to read the lyrics and know what the meaning is, going past that and seeing the perspective that those lyrics are being spoken from,
Yeah.
Like I told you, it's easy to see like a track and be like, oh, he's just talking about, gang violence. But it's another thing to look at the perspective it's coming from and understand that, it's talking about gang violence in a way of speaking against it rather than promoting it,
Yeah.
And like this is kind of like what this track was about. Like the first thing I want to mention, Dom, because I just want to know if it was just me, but when you first heard this song, did it almost sound like off in the beginning? Because to me, I don't know what it was. When I first listened to it, like the beginning parts of it all, it almost sounded like it was like offbeat in a sense,
Right.
I like that's how it sounded at first to me. But then as I listened to it more and more, it all of a sudden started becoming cohesive. Where it was like, now I can fully, like, I don't know what it was. Like when I first listened to it, it sounded like he was offbeat at the start, before like the final parts of the song. But like the first couple minutes, I felt like he was offbeat. And maybe that's because I wasn't used to the instrumental yet. Because like you mentioned, it was a bit funky. I think it had like a Marvin Gaye sample in it somewhere. And then as I kept listening to it, I don't know if that's just a thing of me getting used to it, but like I said, it started getting more cohesive, and it really started shaping into a song, and I could like fully listen to it. But that was me. And then building upon what I was saying, there's a lot of talk here about essentially things that are considered normal and a part of the culture to Kendrick,
Right.
Like he talks about the gang violence that happens, the murders and like, and all this stuff. And it's just like, it's terrible stuff, but it's sad to say it's a part of the culture in a sense, or like it's become so normal because like, like I brought it up to, it's this thing of like it's just an endless cycle of, you know, people being stuck in it and struggling to get out of it, you know.
Right.
And that's kind of, in a way, what you can summarize as Kendrick's career, where, you know, he's always talked about this stuff, but it just kind of feels like an endless cycle where he talks about this stuff and it falls on, you know, deaf ears. Because people listen, but change rarely, if ever, happens because people are just so stuck in that cycle.
Right.
You know, and it's so easy for other people to judge, you know, and say like it's easy to get out of that stuff. But, you know, going back to the whole thing about perspective, looking at it from the perspective of people stuck in this culture, you know, can you really think of any other way when all that's around you is promoting that one way and only that way, you know?
Right, right.
Like, sure, people from the outside can say, well, you know, they can get themselves through school and get themselves out of that neighborhood, you know, but looking at it from their perspective, if that's all they're seeing, you know, sure, you can have the mindset of, I want to be different and not be like them, but there's other things in this life that play into it, you know, and one of those big factors is always going to be money. You can say they can just move out of those communities, but can they really if that's all that they can afford, you know? And every other place is becoming more and more expensive, and people who can't afford are forced into these neighborhoods with the violence, with the gangs and stuff like that, you know? Is it
True,
like,
true.
can we really say it's so easy for them to escape it, you know? And when it comes to the whole thing of the cycle, you know, it's a cycle that's hard to break because, again, you know, looking at it from that perspective, if all people are doing is trying to get you in this, you know, and many times forcibly forcing you into this lifestyle, you know, it's going to be difficult to get out of it, you know, when that's all you're seeing around you. And most importantly, when people are forcing you into it, you know, and then because they have this mindset of, oh, when you're in it for life. When you try and leave, it comes with the consequence of even losing your own life because of it, you know?
Right.
And so, like, that's really a lot of what Kendrick was talking about on here. And, like, you know, like you said, a lot of the lyrics hit hard, and especially the one that hit me was, you know, when he starts talking about Nipsey, you know, he talks about the fact that he was in Argentina at the time because he was at, like, a Lollapalooza, I think is the festival that it was called. He was there, like, he was there for the festival in Argentina when Nipsey died or passed away, you know?
Right.
And, I saw it as, you know, it was a thing of, like, you know, it was, like, a thing of, like, not necessarily guilt, but, you know, he kind of, like, it was sad to see that, like, it happened and he wasn't there at the time. But I also, like, saw it as a thing of, like, you know, him saying that even when he's out here, like, you know, basically, like, out in the world, you know, out in, like, Argentina, he still can't escape the culture, you know, where even if he's in a different setting, the tragic events that occur, you know, that occurred in his life, that occurred in his neighborhoods, in his culture, it's still following him, you know? The news of such tragic events of, you know, people being murdered in the name of gang violence or in the name of, or like just in cold blood, you know, it's like, it still follows him. Even if he tries to go, or like, it's like no matter where, like, again, tying to like what I'm saying, no matter where he goes, the culture still follows him. You can't get away from it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, I forgot who it was. They were trying to talk about, like, how, you know, it's just like Kendrick kind of feels this disconnect because he's always talking about, like, talking against, you know, to not promoting this stuff, but it just continues to happen day in and day out because it's a cycle at this point, you know?
Right.
And, you know, following the whole thing of it being a cycle, he even follows that up with the next line, you know, where he basically says, like, you know, it's always such a tragedy when these events happen, and then by the next day it's forgotten and the same mistakes are repeated again. You know? And we can definitely attest to that because how many times do we see in the news, you know, it's always so tragic and, like, people talk about on social media where, you know, someone loses their life and, you know, people talk about change needs to happen. And then the next day, people just forget about it, you know, because that's the way social media is. It follows a flow, and that flow is your today's news, and then tomorrow's past, you know?
Yeah.
And the same stuff just continues to be repeated. And because and he mentioned it too in his lyrics, they handle it this way because that's the way the culture deems it, where the stuff happens, you accept it and just accept whatever follows after, instead of truly like trying to find a way to change things and make things different. The way of the culture of this life is just to accept it as it is, and whatever follows.
Right.
And it's a bit tragic, but like that's the way things can really be described for a lot of society today. And though you and I probably can't really relate truly to what a lot of Kendrick talks about on here, we can at least attest to seeing a lot of this through our own eyes, not being in that culture, but still seeing it happen in the world around us.
Yeah.
Like you and I have talked about a lot on this podcast, like the things we see, of course, because we live in LA, seeing the stuff that happens here. LA is like, it's one of like the centrals for it, and nothing's really ever done against it. Cause, it's kind of like at this point, it's shown just how desensitized we are to it all, because, Dom and I have the Citizen app, and we just see all the reports of stuff that happens. And a lot of the times it's just like, the stuff seems normal at this point. Like there's a guy in my neighborhood. It's always like every couple of days we get the report, a guy walking around with a machete. And it's just like, at any point is anyone like, oh, we got to stop this guy? It's like, no, at that point, it's like every time it's always just like, oh, he's at it again,
Yeah.
And you're just like, most people would look at that and be like, are they not going to do anything against that, Like, is nothing going to be done to stop this from continuing to happen day in and day out, And that's kind of the same thinking here, where it's like, can we have some change here? Can we truly break this cycle,
Yeah.
But I don't know. How did you feel, Dom? I know you talked about it a bit, but like, how did you feel about a lot of the stuff he was discussing on here?
So yeah, as you said, a lot of the stuff that he's talked about has been pretty much seen throughout the years. Especially with me, just walking every time I have to go, walk back to home at night. I see a lot of the stuff that happens. It's unfortunate that it occurs like normally, like it's pretty much a normal occurrence, which shouldn't be happening at all. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're just bystanders, just watching all of the events unfold, and it is pretty depressing knowing that this is the norm, and we just come to live by it. We can't really do anything to stop it because we don't really have that much power, I guess, to like do anything. We always have to leave it up to the authorities to try to fix up all the problems. But at the end of the day, there's always just going to be another fellow who's just going to do the wrong thing, and it's going to be an endless cycle over and over again, just like how Kendrick states it. And yeah. What was it saying? So basically, and especially with like how do you call it? Well, what kind of scares me the most is like the same messages have been repeating over the years through many different artists, including Kendrick, over the years. And for some reason, I just don't understand how, regardless of the same problems being told to the listener countless many times over, the problem still persists day in and day out. I just don't understand how people don't get it. You know what I mean? I understand it's in the form of music, which is like a very powerful medium. However, people just still don't, try to do the right thing at the end of the day, or just end up being at the wrong place. I mean, not the wrong place at the wrong time, but like still end up trying to be with, wanting to do gang-related stuff or how would you say it? Like, doing the wrong things at the end of the day. It's, I mean, at the end of the day, it just falls up on the decisions that we make ourselves. And, the ones to do what's right, get what's right. But even if you do what's right, morally right, whatever you do throughout your day, bad things can always still come occurring back to you. especially if you live in rough parts of a city, especially in LA.
Yeah. And I
but I mean, yeah.
To your point, it's easy to kind of look at things and be like, yeah, what they're doing is bad and what other people are doing is right,
Yeah.
Going back to the thing about perspective, like for me, it's like I can look at things from the perspective of other people's eyes, and though I've never walked a mile in their shoes, I can at least try and understand as best as I can where they're coming from, And of course,
right.
Just because I understand where they're coming from doesn't mean I condone their actions. But, think about it from like the perspective, like we said, like we're talking about all this stuff that they're doing. And like I've mentioned, sometimes that's the only way. It's like, think about it, yes, what they're doing, like from like other people's eyes is bad. But to like, I've seen some stuff. And so it's opened my eyes. It's like, to some people, it's like, a lot of them don't even want to be doing that stuff. Like, for example, when people are drug dealing, a lot of them are only doing it because it's their way to put money on the table. And though we can look from a different perspective and say, oh, that's not the only way to do things. It's like sometimes to them, it's the only way because it's the only thing that gives them enough money,
True. You gotta
it's the only thing that allows them to get enough money to, who knows what their story is. Maybe they're paying the medical bills of someone, and so a normal job wouldn't help them pay for that, And they see that, and they see from, again, they're seeing from the others in their community that doing stuff like drug dealing brings them in more money, but it comes with a risk, But so many people are pushed to that point where they take that risk and don't even care,
Right.
Or it's like, from their eyes, they're not doing any bad because, again, from their eyes, maybe they have a just cause to do it, and that's why they're taking that risk of doing something maybe illegal because it's like, there's something greater at mind for them that they aren't able to handle properly because, they aren't in the place to do it,
Yeah.
Like it can be so easy for someone who already has a job lined up for them and all this safety and security to be like, oh, you could just do this and this. But maybe for someone else, they don't have the time to, do all that, Especially, like, another thing is thinking about people who live in those dangerous neighborhoods. So many of them, it's like, you can kind of understand from their perspective, they don't have the time to go through school, Living in dangerous neighborhoods like that, I don't think they have 4 years to get through school and then another year or so to really find a good enough job that will get them the money they need to get out of those places,
Yeah.
Time is everything. And when you're in a neighborhood like that isn't safe, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So a lot of them, they don't have that time to wait, So that's like another thing of looking at the perspective. And real quickly, man, this kind of shows that there's just so much to talk about something. There's only a minute and 20 left on. Real quickly, I just want to, we talked about, that perspective at the end of talking through Nipsey Hussle, even using his own like cadence and flow that he would have,
Yeah.
Kendrick rapping about, through his perspective of forgiving the guy who killed him, and, talking about like, talking as Nipsey to the rest of his family, telling them, to make sure that, my kids knew the man I was, to show them my interview so they know the man I was, They know the things that I was about, the things that I would have instilled in them as a father, I thought that was real powerful.
Yeah, same.
But 35 seconds left, Dom. Any final words?
Overall, I really liked the lyricism. I feel like the beat could have been better, but it felt nice overall. Good flow.
What would your rating be?
7 or 8 out of 10, around there.
I'm going to give it like an 8.5, I guess.
I can respect that.
Thank you all for joining us for Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast, another episode. As always, if it exists, we have an opinion on it, and we'll catch y'all next week where we will be giving our reaction to the full Kendrick Lamar album that drops this Friday.